The following spotlight, you will meet Brenda Howard Johnson and her book In Sickness and in Health. Um, I've been thinking about doing a set of videos called or a series of videos called the Wedding Vow series. The first was last year, Till Death Do We Part. And I've decided that In Sickness and in Health, even though it is about a book, it will be the second in of the spotlights in the Wedding Vow series. So let me introduce to you Brenda Howard Johnson and her book, In Sickness and in Health. Enjoy. Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Anthony Spencer for the Voice Spotlight. Our guest tonight is Brenda Howard Johnson. I am meeting Brenda, my sister-in-law. Um, Always looking for fresh material. My sister-in-law told me of a friend of hers that was writing a book. And what Brenda doesn't know is it falls directly in a series that I've been playing around with. About a year ago, about a year ago, Voice Spotlight 20, I did one that was called, oh, wow, it's slipping my mind now. Um, In Death That We Part. It was part of the wedding vows. But again, what caught my mind is, or my sight is that the name of the book is In Sickness and in Health. It is available on Amazon, but we'll talk about that later. Brenda, how are you doing this evening?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm glad we
Hmm.
finally got together because I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've been chasing Doris down to chase you down, and I know that you're busy as well. So let's jump right into it. In sickness and health, we're always, and I've had authors on before, and there's a book in everybody. I know from reading why you chose to do the book, but would you like to elaborate? Why did you choose to do this book?
Well, I chose to do the book because my main reason was I wanted to help other people. My husband had a heart attack in 2021, and literally he left, but God brought him back. Thanks to, the doctors and having people in the right place. What really struck me was while we were in the hospital, um, a nurse talked about how she was really impressed that, I mean, I was there every day. And I thought about the fact that when you take vows, oftentimes we just repeat what the pastor says and we don't really think about those words. And when we say in sickness and in health, for richer or for poor, a lot of people think about the richer or for poor, but they never really focus on the fact that there may be a time that in sickness and in health will play a part in their marriage early on versus later on.
And I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe, and maybe it's a sign of my age, that the wedding vows are more said than actually believed. It's almost ritual, but there's meaning and there's powers in the words. But I want to get back to one of the things that I saw in the book. You stated in the book that a third of divorces are because of medical reasons.
Correct.
Why do you think that is?
I think that people just don't, they don't expect that. And they just don't know how to handle it. And most importantly, I don't believe that they have the faith that God will not give them any more than they can bear. I've had the opportunity just recently to speak to three different people who shared with me when I shared with them about the book that their spouses left them when they got cancer. And it just amazes me how you can say you love someone, and when they go through an unexpected health journey, you just up and leave them. Because you would not, the other would expect them to stay. But I think, I think people just either just don't want to deal with it or they're afraid. But mainly, I don't believe that they put their faith in God that He will, you know, guide them through it.
I think, and quite naturally, I mean, we probably visually become attracted to a person first.
Mhm.
Um, and then I don't know whether second or third there is the physical draw or the emotional draw, and they don't always fall in the same order.
Mhm.
And that is something that I think is leads to not only the health, but in divorces, period.
Yes.
Um, I have been married before, and I'm with my soulmate now. Um, but beyond the physical, I think uh, they lose track of what that is. And then in reading, your book and listening to you just now, when people aren't able to give them the lifestyle that
Right.
they're used to. Um, and just a weird little segue. Back in the day, I worked for the federal government, and um, in talking with a friend of mine, he was like, "Man, I can't keep her out the clubs, but that's where you met her at, you
Right.
So after she felt some kind of security, I guess she just fell back on what she knows,
Mhm.
or knew, I should say, or enjoyed. I shouldn't, maybe I'll put it that way, that enjoyed. But that's when I think that uh, when it comes to the wedding vows and taking somebody as your spouse, sometimes I feel like it's almost a trial period.
Mhm.
Something that I'll taste this and see if it works, and if it doesn't work, then they go about their business.
Right.
That statistic rang pretty much true in some of the things that I've experienced in life. So I'm going to get into and they are 8 chapters in the book that are segued or split by reflections, and we'll get into that later. Uh,
Mhm.
and it's not a long read, it's 101 pages total, so it's not a long read. But in the chapter, Journey of a Caregiver, you
Mhm.
mentioned that when this happened to your husband, Charles, correct?
Correct.
When this happened to your husband, that there were signs before this happened as he went to work. Would you like to give us a little snapshot of that?
So he had, he was a warden at a prison here in North Carolina. Of course, it was during COVID. Um, thank God he never has contracted COVID, but because he was considered an essential employee, there were times where he had to work later than usual. And it was just a constant go. He definitely worried about his staff because his goal has always been, even prior to COVID, that they walk into the prison, they leave walking out of the prison. He wanted them to leave the same way they came in. That night he worked late. He got home, he ate a little bit, went to bed, got up very early in the morning, earlier than normal, drank a Red Bull, and went to work. Um, he had fought for them to get what's called a cell sense, which would sense anyone that was bringing in a cell phone. He had also fought for them to get an um, AED, IED in the hallway, never knowing that he would be the one that they would use it on.
Oh,
He indicated he walked in the prison. The sensor went off. It had never gone off before. He had always done the same thing. He went back out. He came back in. The sensor continued to go off. So he sat to the side where there was a table. He sat on the table. He said, and the next thing he knew was that he just started profusely sweating. And the next thing he knew was that the doctor of the prison was giving him chest compressions, and several of the ladies that worked at the prison were in the corner praying. He had had a heart attack. He had stopped. His heart had stopped for 6 minutes, and they were able to revive him.
wow, wow. I have taught um, first aid, CPR and AED, usage. So I know the process. I've been involved, and when I worked for the Horseshoe, we brought back two, we lost two. Those were extenuating circumstances. So that whole process and people should realize on television it looks a certain way, but
Yes,
CPR is it's abrupt and violent almost.
yes,
There's a lot of pressure and things that go into it, and the AED is it could start a car, so
right.
that's something else. So this happened at the height of COVID. So from the prison, they transferred him to a hospital.
They took him to a hospital. And I mean, I was very shocked when my friends got me there. They the people at the prison, because they do take inmates to certain hospitals, they're familiar with who they are. And the people that followed him from the prison made sure that they knew I was his wife, and they got me back. The other warden stayed for a little bit, they left. But once I got there, I was the only person that could even come and go to see him because they weren't allowing multiple people to come in to visit a patient.
And then in COVID, I know that it was a big shutdown. Uh,
Yes.
I had a niece that contracted COVID in the early days, and I know during her time in the hospital, which was about 8 months, I got the call several times that they didn't know whether she would make it,
Mm,
and they were not allowed at the hospital.
mhm.
But she's here. She's doing well. She's still gathering her strength. She still has residuals from the act,
Right.
um, because she was in a coma for a lot of the time. So,
Mm,
she did come back from it, and that was God. Her father's
yes.
in this area, and I know that church was praying, as well as the family. So, in the chapter Journey of a Caregiver, you spoke of trust and faith.
Mhm.
Um, Tell us about trust and faith. There was a couple of things in there, but trust and faith stood out. So, you want to speak about that if you can?
You know, you never think about being a caregiver. I actually did not consider myself a caregiver. He's the one that said, "You are a caregiver." But I grew up in the church. Um, so I knew the power of prayer. I have always prayed, good or bad, and I just kept the faith that God was going to make sure he came home. And however he came home, I was okay with that. But as you go every day, as you see the person that you love laying there, whether they're able to do at that moment or not, I just continued to remember that God would not give me any more than I could bear. I believed and I prayed that, and I had the faith that he was going to be okay. It may have been a tough road, but I just kept that faith because I just felt like God was not going to fail me. And he didn't. He brought him home. He came home, yes. Um, I took on that role of, I considered myself more of an advocate. Um, more than a caregiver. I paid attention, I listened, I asked questions. It was important for me to be able to hear and ask questions because there were things he may not think of. Um, there were times where I had to have the faith that the people I was leaving him with was going to take good care of him because at that time I couldn't even spend the night. I had to go home every night. So I had to trust God that the people that were supposed to be caring for him were going to care for him. And when I got back the next morning, that I didn't have to, be one of those, spouses that my alter ego, they call her name's Denise. So, I didn't want Denise to have to come out. But it's about knowing who your father is and just experiencing certain things throughout my life. I knew that there was a reason that we were put together. And I had the faith that God would not allow us to be together for him to take him away from me so soon.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Again, if people would take it a little bit more seriously when they walk down the aisle or for whatever reasons, whether you make your own vows or not, if you're saying them, you should mean what they say, and that's not try to get a point, with the homies and views and stuff.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I want to talk about the chapter that you labeled effective communication. Um, I'm big on communication, especially in a relationship. Um, and I know that through a lot of problems that couples, whether married or engaged, single, or whatever, that communication is key.
Mhm.
Um, but in your chapter of effective communications, you kind of speak of changes to the unseen, unspoken rules of communication.
Mhm.
So you want to give us a little bit of that?
We both have been married before. When we got into this marriage, we both decided that we wanted to make sure that we communicated well. We knew and we identified what was worth continuing, the disagreement and what wasn't worth it. We decided that small things weren't worth us getting angry about and letting it linger. When he went through this illness, or when he went through this chapter in his life, I determined that yes, we still communicated, but we had to communicate differently because I had to acknowledge that he had a different experience than I did. And sometimes when I could identify that you can't continue that same mode of communication because you have someone that just experienced a life-threatening experience, one that I hadn't experienced. So I knew that going forward that I had to be sensitive to how he was feeling because unfortunately, sometimes men don't share how they're feeling. They hold it close to, you know, the chest. They just don't want um, either their spouse to know or their friends to know. So they hold that tight. And I identified with that. So I knew that I had to think about the fact that he went through and is going through an experience that I don't know. So I had to make sure that when I communicated with him, I thought about that. I thought about the fact that he views life differently. So where we may have been going along the path as normal couples and spouses do, we were no longer going along that normal path. We had taken another road. And so by taking that other road, there had to be changes. And so I needed to be the one to make the biggest change because I needed to make sure that as I communicated, that I was being sensitive to what he was going through, how he felt, his I'm sorry, his, I don't want to say lack of communication, but his ability to not want to share, I'm not feeling well today. Because see, the one thing that my husband also did was he felt like um he had put me through something that I didn't sign up for. He kept, for a little bit, he apologized for getting sick. And I had to remind him that there's nothing to apologize for, that it didn't matter, that I was there. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not letting him go anywhere. So he had to, um, and sometimes it bothers him, I know, but I think because you know your spouse or significant other or family member is going through a different life experience, especially in illness, that we have to be mindful of that and we have to decide, do we continue down the path that we've always gone, or do I step back, look at the direction that we're going, look at um, or and try to understand what the other person is going through and make the change so that we can continue smooth conversations.
Right. Um, if no one's ever been a caregiver, um, they wouldn't recognize or hear what you're saying. Um, having been a caregiver for my mom, that's different than being a caregiver for, your husband. And I know from experience that uh, as much as you think you have a good form of communication, that sometimes it can be frustrating for one or the other. Um,
Mhm.
and you were saying how stubborn men are and the way they are. My adopted dad, Andrew Brinkley, which is Darcy's, he's gone, but he would have been Darcy's father-in-law. Um, one of the things that it didn't bother me, but I don't know how it hit my heart because uh, prior to his passing, we were sitting in the kitchen and just talking, and he voiced his frustration. He says, like, I can't help your mother, you know. I'm sitting in this wheelchair and I can't help her. And if you knew him, he was just moving and grooving. I mean, in his 70s, he could swing a hammer like crazy,
Wow.
you know. But it bothered him. So
Mhm.
his view of what he was going through was different than mom's view of what was going on. Um, so that I do know that the communication is key, but you do have to make some adjustments because you know, for the same situation where Brenda or Denise or whoever was there at the time
Mhm.
was going, talking to a nurse or a doctor, he might have been feeling something different about
Right.
that same experience. So, um,
And you're correct. It's the thought of I'm no longer able to do those things that I used to do, and they don't know how to get that frustration out.
right.
And so, even part of the communication part is that when they do express the frustration, it may not come out the way you're used to because they're frustrated. And you have to be able to, I'm using identify, but you have to be able to understand that that frustration has built up to a point. This is the only way they know how to express it.
Okay. So one of the other things that I found interesting in the book is that uh, you in the role of and this happened 3 years into your marriage.
Correct.
So of course, you would not have thought that part of the vow would come to be to the forefront of your life. Um, but one chapter in the book that I liked, as the caregiver, you had a chapter called Self-Care for the Caregiver.
Mhm.
Um, if the caregiver embraces the role, then they're going, 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 going. Um, and there's a situation in my family right now where um, someone's being a caregiver and they're not paying attention, I feel, to their own challenges and doing the things that they knew because they're too busy giving to others.
Right.
So your self-care to the caregiver, that's an interesting chapter. Can you give me a little bit of that?
I mean, if you don't step back, if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of them. And that was one of the things that, I mean, my husband pushed me to that. He said, um, you have to take care of you. You can leave me. I will be okay because there was a point where I did not want to leave his side because I wanted to make sure that he was okay. But even if it's going to the park, listening to jazz or whatever type music that you like, self-care doesn't mean always going to the nail salon. It doesn't mean going, going to what do they call them? The spa.
Yes, okay.
Um, Self-care can be as simple as taking a walk, just inhaling and exhaling the fresh air, but you have to do something that you enjoy. Go out with your friends, go to the movies, do something for you because you need some way to release. You need some way to take a deep breath and let it all out and not feel guilty for wanting to take care of yourself. So I think, had he not pushed me to go out, go to dinner with with my friends, I probably wouldn't have done that. But I think um, him knowing me the way he does, he knew that if I didn't, that I would lose myself in focusing on making sure he was good.
And that gets back to communication.
Mhm.
So, we're going to swing back around to, like I said, there are eight chapters in the book, but between each chapter, you have what you call reflections.
Mhm.
Um, why? Why did you think that was a needed item in the book?
You know, when I wrote the book, um, my cousin tells me, "You've always wanted to write a book." I knew I've always wanted to be a motivational speaker about what I never knew. But I thought it was important that as each person read each chapter, that they could take an opportunity, especially if they were going through this journey as well, take the opportunity to write down, to reflect on what they got from the chapter, how it, plays a part for them. I think it's important to write things down. I've learned to write things down because if you don't, then sometimes you don't get it out. And so as you go through the book, you'll see that there are different scriptures that go along with the chapters. So I want you to reflect on God's word and what you yourself um what you feel, how you ref, you're ref, you I want you to reflect on those chapters, on his word, how it affects you, what it means to you. So that's why I did it because I wanted to just if I could help one person through that journey, in my opinion, this book has done what I wanted it to do.
Okay, and that kind of brings me to my next question. Um, just now, and through our earlier conversation and in the book itself, you were saying that you wanted it to help people, and it's not just for married people.
Correct.
Um, you wanted it to be a guide for anyone that might fall in that sort of situation. So, I guess the takeaway for married people would be I don't want to say a guide, but to provide an understanding of what you may or may not go through. If you don't go through it, then life is well, and
Right.
but if you do, you have something to um, as a here I am using the word guide, but what help does it provide the unmarried person? Maybe the person is thinking about marriage, or one day thinking that they would be married.
So for a person who one day will think they're going to be married or even are engaged, it allows them the opportunity to see that when you get married, if this were to happen to you or something similar, you will not be alone. You're not alone. There are others that have gone through it. There are others that have are going through it, and they've been able to get to the end of the tunnel where the light's still shining, and that you have you'll understand the experience. You'll understand some of the things that you may go through. You'll learn how to communicate should that happen. You'll learn the importance of having a tribe. You'll learn that you have to do self-care, but you're not alone in this journey. And I think that that's important to know that you're not by yourself, that others have been through it, others will go through it. But here's something to help you know that, like you said, it's a little guide. Here's some things you can do. Here's some things you can reflect on. Wow, this is what that means. Yeah, that's what this means. Um, and it also allows them to know that when you repeat those words, you should mean it because you never know when it and if something will affect your life like this.
Right. And now that the one that I did back a year ago, Till Death Do We Part, and
Mhm.
uh three friends of mine all lost spouses.
Mm,
And they never thought it would happen. Not all was unexpected, but and some one of them, at least a very dear friend, went through a prolonged period till that happened. So I guess I guess this is for everyone, and I hope they do take the option of reading it. Like I said, it's 8 chapters, 101 pages. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. So, um, you wanted to be a motivational speaker in something, and you had a book in you in something, and
mhm.
this presented itself. So, since the release of the book, has it afforded you the opportunity to help someone? Have you spoke or have you been asked to speak? Have you done things like what we're doing here on the Spotlight?
So this is the first opportunity I've had to speak to others outside of my circle. Um, so that's one reason why I'm excited. I have had the opportunity to speak to some people one-on-one. My hope is that right now I've been planning a huge convention for my full-time job. And so once September second week of September, comes, my focus is going to be to really reach out and try to get in front of more people to share this book
Well,
and
I'm
encourage them to realize, encourage them, um, even if they're a caregiver for, a family member, that even though I'm talking about my spouse, the same process still applies.
I kind of thought it felt like insurance. It's there if you need it.
Mhm.
You may not need it,
Yeah.
but it's there
Right.
if you need it. Um, and thinking back and maybe to the parts of reflection, and I didn't find out till later that you have an accompanying journal
Yes.
along with it. I had Miss Tiffany Murrow on earlier last year, and hers is definitely quotes scriptures with pages for you to put down your reflections or to journal yourself. So I unfortunately I didn't know about the journal until probably 2 days ago. But tell us a little bit about the journal because when they pick up the book, and I'm urging everybody should read this, whether they're couples or engaged or something like that, because you have to know how serious life can be because this is your person that you're bonding with and hopefully for life that if something happens so you're not caught off guard. So I'm urging them to pick up the book, but tell us a little bit about the journal because I don't know a lot about it because I didn't pick one up.
Right. So the journal is basically a flow from the book. It actually gives you more detail of on, it makes you check off. Have you, who's your tribe? Have you done self-care? It gives you the opportunity each day to reflect how your person was today. Um, how did you can write a letter to yourself. It's where you can journal what you're feeling to get some of that out. So it's a 30-day journal and each day has I think about 4 pages. But what are appointments? So it kind of gives you a little bit so you can keep track of your person, but then it also gives you space to you know, look at your self-care, um, do some journaling about yourself. How was your interaction with your person that day? And you can journal about that. It's just a space to kind of allow you to document for yourself the journey. Whether because some days aren't going to be good days. I mean, that's just the reality. Some days you are going to be frustrated. Some days you're going to just be angry, maybe at the situation, or you're angry because you feel like, why am I going through this? You have that space to write that down, to get it out of your system. And then hopefully one day you'll be able to go back and read through that journal and look at the progress that's been made. Or if your significant other um, happens to not make it, but it allows you to reflect and remember that journey and possibly share that journey with others. So right now it's a bound journal, but I'll be working on that same journal, but in a loose leaf form so that if your journey is longer than the time frame of the journal, then if you want additional pages, you can get it and put it into, it'll be refillable. So that's the next goal is to make it refillable.
Well, I'm certainly hoping that someone will view this, and I don't know how far it's going to go. I'm hoping that you share it with your tribe down there because it's definitely going to be up here. And I guess the book, because I think writing or putting down your thoughts can be therapeutic. The reflections is definitely a form of therapy. And the journal is another form of therapy. So has putting this together, even though it had a uh, serious um, genesis to get through to get there, has it been therapeutic to you? And how are you?
It 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 was therapy. Um, but it was also a reminder of how grateful I am. Because when that call came through, they could have been telling me something else. They could have been not only telling me that he stopped, his heart stopped, but they also could have said he didn't make it. So it was a reminder of how grateful I was too. Um, and and I mean that's really my biggest words. I'm grateful. I am thankful. And it's a reminder that when I said those words, I meant those words. Um, when my husband read the book, I let him read it first. He didn't know I was writing the book
Wow.
until about 2 weeks before it was ready, it was published. And when he got the first book, he read it, and um, it was very emotional for him. And he shared, I could, when he was talking with his friends, he said, it's something to read about yourself. And it gave me the opportunity to see this journey through her eyes. So I am good. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. Yes, oftentimes when you have major health issues, it sparks something else. But you know what? We're grateful. I mean, I know you're saying that's all she's saying, but we are. We are so grateful that he's here. We do things differently. Okay, who cares? We still have each other.
So
Um, Roles may, there are things that he can't do. Guess what? Who cares? I can do it, so I will. So, you know, there's some good things that have, at least some would say there's some good things that have come from that. I haven't cooked in God knows how long because he's taken on that role because that's something that he enjoys, but that's something that he can do that doesn't exert a lot of energy for him. I'm grateful. You make it work. So it's about love. And that's why, I say nurturing love through illness because not only did he nurture my love, I nurtured his love. So yeah, we're just taking one day at a time. We're thanking God for each day that we have, and we are just enjoying life with each other.
that's great. It's your ministry. And I'm glad because tonight what at our church, Victoria's Living Faith Ministry, is our Tranquil Transformations ministry that deals with uh, your mental health and well-being. And it sounds, if they read the book, they'll find some of that in there, especially the self-care for the caregiver. And then we have a grief ministry, like you said, he may not have made it, but he's here, and that's God's will, and he is
Yeah.
definitely. You can thank him for lending you to us tonight. I'm glad that you considered coming on. So as we wind around to a close, um, I'm introducing you to folks through.
Okay.
And we've gone through the things in the book and whys and how forth. But if you had something to say directly to hopefully your new readers, and maybe it could segue into some speaking roles. But if you have the floor to talk to your new people, what would you say?
What I would say is love and life is a journey that I think everyone should have the opportunity to go through. when you say, I think it's important that you understand that the words you say have power. I think it's important that you know that you are not alone in any walk or journey that you go through. There's someone that's experienced it as well. But what's important is that those people that are willing to share those experiences with them, it may not be your exact experience, but it can be a helpful tool to understand again that you're not alone. I am, I'm Brenda. I haven't changed who I am. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, um, and I love the life that God has given me. And that life starts with my husband, my children, and we have a new little puppy who's now the joy of both of our lives. But I think that nurturing love, whether it's through illness or whether it's just every day, I think it's important. And that I would encourage everyone to just take the time to really learn about each other that you are in relationships with. Identify that within yourself, if something were to happen, what would you do? Where would you lean? How would you get through it? Um, in in a way that it will be a positive, reassuring way for your significant other, your sister, your brother, because again, they're leaning or not leaning because they don't want to put a lot of pressure on you to be there for them. And to remember that if the shoe was on the other foot, what would you want? So I'm excited. I hope again that the book touches someone's heart. I hope that it opens up eyes where people will see that despite what life throws at you, you can get through it and that you're not alone.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It was nice meeting you.
You
And
as well.
down in Burlington, we might run into each other. I don't know if we're going before the end of the year. I'm not sure whether we're going down or not. Brett and Doris have invited. We got an open invitation, so we just may take it to go down and spend time with them. But it was so nice meeting you and spending
You as well.
this evening. I am going to leave some information about the book on how and where they can get that, and I hope they take advantage of it. And if this again, if this segues into someone looking at this and want to maybe do a Zoom call with you, a speaking engagement of some kind, that
I would love it.
doors for you. I hope it opens doors for you.
Thank you so
So
much.
we appreciate you, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a great night and thank you for the opportunity.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.